What's up, guys? Today I had the opportunity to talk to Greg, the founder and CEO of Hansel Medical. He's got a diverse background. He's done engineering, he's done product, he's done sales, and he's bringing it all together in Hansel where they're tracking surgical equipment. And guys, we're not talking about $10 tweezers here. We're talking thousands of dollars worth of high-end surgical equipment that, yes, it can get lost in the shuffle. He's solving that problem. We talk about couch surfing on his way to becoming a founder. We talk about how he found his co-founder, and also the 6-year incubation period that eventually led to the idea of Hansel in the first place. Check the show notes for his details. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation.
So I call it like stressful excitement.
Okay.
Would be anxiousness.
Sure.
Which is why I'm waking up at 5:30 without an alarm lately. And like a few weeks ago, there was a couple mornings where it was 4:15 and 4:30. That was not ideal. I'm a big sleep person, so I know people are happier and I'm more cognitively alert, obviously, when I sleep well. But I feel like I'm running on some good momentum and energy right now. I don't know, my sleep needs are a little less, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
I'm excited about where we're at with the company, Hansel. And I'm excited about getting my co-founder full-time on the team. That's going to be a huge day for me personally and for us as a team and a company. We've been kind of through the trenches together for the last 3.5 years doing things in our spare time. And then me personally full-time on the company for the last 16 months or so.
Okay.
So those are two things that I'm excited about.
Tell us, what is Hansel, company that you and your co-founder are starting up?
Yes.
And why? Why Hansel?
Yeah. So Hansel Medical is a web and mobile platform using lightweight Bluetooth tracking devices, custom hardware, to tag and track expensive orthopedic surgical trays.
Okay.
So these are trays that are used in procedures like knee replacements, hip replacements, trauma, spinal fusion.
How expensive?
They can cost anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars to over $100,000 for spine trays. Specialty trays are made at times that cost over that amount. And what's unique about this asset class within healthcare in orthopedics is the trays are owned by the manufacturer typically, and they are moved between facilities to support changing surgery schedules. So a regional branch office of a manufacturer or a distributor that reps products for another manufacturer or multiple manufacturers. Those reps, sales reps, orthopedic sales reps, have relationships with the surgeons and rep their products to be with the surgeon in the surgery. Okay. And so when doctor sees patient...
The sales rep is in the surgeon?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So these sets, trays, kits, they're all called that all by our customers. So the nomenclature can change. But it's essentially the toolkit that the rep and the doctor use to perform the surgery. So if you think about a surgeon, it's kind of like a very specialized, high-profile mechanic of the body.
Okay, that mechanic of the body.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally tools.
Yeah,
so when you think about a knee replacement, like they're literally taking out your bone, putting in an implant, and replacing the knee.
Isn't that wild?
It is.
Isn't it wild what we can do now?
Yeah.
And it trips me out every time I think about how much advancements we've made. I mean, you talk about being grateful for being in America.
Yeah.
I think about that constantly in the 21st century. I was born in the 20th century, but 21st century, and just the fact that we can just go like replace our body parts now. I mean, that's like the cyborgs that we imagined from the past.
I mean, people are living longer and technology's only gotten better. So it's more economical and easier for people to have this done so that they can prolong their quality of life.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is anywhere between 50 and 60% of the global orthopedic market.
Wow, okay.
I mean, so we obviously have one of the largest healthcare industries or markets in the world. So in my research, I've found numbers that's roughly half, just call it roughly half.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
That's insane.
When you think about, we have like probably 350 million people. There's 7 to 8 billion people in the world, and we're half of the orthopedic market.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's innovation and
both, right?
Well, it's innovation and advancement of technology in the U.S. and our privatized healthcare system.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So we don't have government-backed healthcare, so that changes the innovation. That's another thing grateful about America, in my opinion, is like our culture just drives this ethos of innovation and entrepreneurship. I think it's founded in the founding of the country.
Sure, yeah.
And the expansion even to the West.
Yep.
Right? The Western.
Well, they're all businessmen and adventurers. Yeah.
So like to start in the colonies, break away from the UK, which I give co-founder trouble for. I give the co-founder trouble for. because he's in the UK.
Yeah. Is he native to the UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll stay there for now, at least.
Sure.
But so
That's
what
awesome.
that's what Hansel does.
So these trays, I'm curious now.
Yeah.
They're $10,000 up to $100,000. You said. I mean, they're like full trays that wheel around, or what size are they?
No, they're about a foot by 2.5 feet, probably, rectangle form. And then inside the tray, that's where the valuable stuff is. It's called the instruments. So those are the tools. So the tray is just a name for the whole assembly.
Yeah.
And then the instruments are the actual tools, the hammers and screwdrivers and whatever.
They're still that expensive.
Yeah, well, that's all custom designed by the manufacturers, usually manufactured and machined by a manufacturing shop that specializes in medical. And the engineering is owned and designed by the manufacturers.
So interesting. So then how did you, what made you pursue Hansel in the first place? I guess back to the why Hansel question.
Yeah. So after my first startup, which was an oil and gas startup, I did 2 years of medical device sales representing durable medical equipment. So it was a post-op spinal fusion device called a bone growth stimulator. It's a device that the patient wears on their back for 30 minutes a day, and it sends a frequency across the bone, the fusion site, to help stimulate and accelerate bone growth. So I did 2 years of that at a distributor as a sales rep working for the distributor. So I called on and had relationships with orthopedic surgeons, orthopedic spine surgeons, neurosurgeons, foot and ankle doctors, extremity like hands. Most of the business was in the spine space just because regular fusion surgeries were consistent for needing our device, whereas they call it long bone, which was the extremity fractures. If you fractured your forearm, in order to get a bone growth stimulator, the doctor has to indicate through x-ray a 90-day period where you didn't have bone growth healing the fracture.
Oh, okay.
Whereas for a fusion, they could prescribe the bone growth stimulator almost as a medicine. It was like a durable medical device treated like a prescription medicine in the sense that the doctor prescribes it for the patient. So I called on practices, worked with clinical staff, managed the insurance and calls with the patients, and I drove around and delivered my patients. So I owned everything from sales to my own operations and billing and reconciliation, all that stuff.
Dang. Okay.
Which was really, really good, cutting your teeth in healthcare and kind of just being your own little entrepreneur within a distributor in that space. During that time, and after I left the first startup, I was having conversations with a founder who was actually my cousin's college roommate. I slept on their
Your cousin's
college roommate.
Okay.
Yeah. I slept on their spare couch, actually, my sophomore summer of college. Yeah.
The cousin's couch?
Yeah, the cousin and the roommate.
Roommate.
It was in Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
So I was a sophomore in college. I don't know. I didn't have an internship in engineering that summer, so I went down there and hung out with my cousin and stayed with them. And anyways, so when I left the oil and gas startup and was in medical sales, I was having calls with that founder because I had heard that he was starting this company. Okay. And those calls and that interest just grew over time.
So you'd built up a relationship with that guy sleeping on the couch.
Well, yeah, I knew him through because he was close friends with my cousin.
Yeah. So you staying in touch with him as you left and heard that he was starting.
Yeah, well, when I left the last startup and I was in sales, I was just interested to stay informed or apprised on how things were going with it.
Yeah.
Because, there wasn't any certainty that it was going to materialize. But after 2 years in medical sales, it was at a point where he felt it good to bring me on board full time.
Yeah.
So, and I actually wanted to get out of a pure sales role and back into building stuff. I get a lot of personal fulfillment and value out of that.
Because you had gotten a mechanical engineering degree?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were looking to get more hands-on.
Yeah, and my 3 years at the oil and gas startup was amazing exposure into software as businesses and connected devices and just having that level of autonomy to build and create things. It's kind of like an art form in itself to have that creativity with an engineering underpinning to it.
Absolutely.
of solutionizing, right? Mm-hmm. Finding a solution that delivers value. So I kind of draw those parallels, and that's what I love about cars or engineering in general. I chose to study mechanical engineering because I loved cars and I was good at math. Those were the only two reasons I chose it.
Okay.
And so what I love about cars is just it's you want it to be aesthetically pleasing, but also be functional for whatever purpose it is. So an SUV is going to have a different function or reason for its uses. You still want it to look good, but it has a different function and purpose. And then your Porsche or your high-end sports car is going to be different in that regard too. That's how I look at, and that's how I look at most things. Is just even software product. So I've always been a fan of not only just the functionality and reliability and value that a software can provide to customers or users. But the UX and UI aesthetics strive. I have big aspirations for Hansel to be every bit of like a leading user experience in healthcare for our customers.
It does seem like a lot of people try to make the trade-off of form versus functions. Like, which one are we going to focus on?
Both.
That your perspective is like, no, both. You're not going to sacrifice either.
Yeah. Now, to start being such an early stage company, the function matters more.
Sure. The
value and reliability, especially working with early adopters, that matters more big time.
Yeah.
So my co-founder and I are very aware of that. You know, I even tell people in meetings, I'm like, give us grace on the UI, you know, and they're actually, some of them have been like, looks good, it looks fine. I'm like, nah, like it can be better.
It depends on who you're selling to. Yeah. Engineers and doctors and some of the more scientific types, it's like, they just want it to work, and that is beauty to them.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we're our own worst critics at sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and I think I have some of that.
Sure.
It's a healthy thing. Like, meaning like you're internally competitive to like, I want this thing to be pretty as well as really functional, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, back to
so you coming out of sales, joining this other because this is all before Hansel. This is leading into Hansel. So,
but this is really a foundation part of leading into Hansel. Yeah. So the medical sales role was, and then I joined another early stage. I ended up joining that startup as a business development person and spent, you know, my time there is for 2 months. And they were building an asset tracking solution in healthcare. So obviously very, a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities, and a lot of consistencies. But they had a focus on healthcare systems, so like hospitals. Okay. So using Bluetooth devices to track items in hospitals. And they were working with Cedars-Sinai out in LA at the time, and had some other hospital leads with relationships that the founder had. And luck would have it that our first distributor, they had a mobile app when I joined, but it was very basic functionality. It was basically a skeleton of the mobile app. It had some like pass off, like manual action items to do with the hardware, like when dropping equipment off or something like that. But it was not a focus of theirs for sure. They were focused more on this web application, browser-based web application for hospitals with connected devices and stuff. Okay. And so luck would have it that the first distributor that was interested in working with us was 10 minutes from my sister's home in the Portland, Oregon area.
Oh, nice.
So it was a distributor that represented Stryker hardware. They've since converted to a corporate Stryker branch office. But so I slept on my sister's spare bed. I talked to the co-founder. With my experience at the last oil and gas startup and 2 years in sales. It was like this perfect marriage of experience to help that company with connected IoT devices, building software solutions, working with customers and engagement, deployments in the field, and then the sales experience of understanding healthcare, billing, all that stuff. And I didn't do hardware orthopedic trays, but I did post-op spinal fusion stuff. So I at least had some familiarity with it. And so I slept on my sister's spare bed for the first 10 weeks that first fall.
So you're good at like finding spare beds to sleep on and couches and stuff.
That's a
core skill.
Yeah, well, working. So the first oil and gas startup was a 4-employee. I joined as employee number 4. Okay. I worked as an independent contractor. I slept on an air mattress for 7 months when I moved to Dallas. I had an air mattress for 7 months when I first moved to Dallas, and my clothes were in piles. Yeah. Because I didn't know what the heck I was getting myself into, you know? That was the first.
I feel like that says something about you, though, like your willingness to, you know, how do we glorify that? Like the thriftiness, right? Being able to scrape by.
Well, I've never thought about it as glorifying. It was like it was what I needed to do. Yeah. It was the necessity at the time. And I'm definitely all about saving money and not spending unnecessary money or money I didn't have at the time anyways. Yeah. So it didn't matter. I mean, I had a starter home in Kansas City, and I had 2 buddies renting from me. And when I had the opportunity to move, like to pack my stuff up in my car, I moved down to Texas. I was like, here's the mortgage, here's the here's the net cost of the house. Like, I'm gonna go see about this thing in Texas. You guys just cover the cost of the house. We're good, and it worked out. It worked out for both sides. Okay. So, but because I didn't know what I was getting myself into, right, I didn't move my stuff down. Right, I didn't know how long it would last, and so I was an independent contractor working for that first founder for 7 months until he got 2 other investment parties to join in on capital allocation to the company, and that's when I got converted to full time, and then it just ran its course. So fast forward to the second startup. Yeah, I spent 10 weeks working. Every day I would drive to that distributor 10 minutes from my sister's home, and I would work on site with the distributor to understand their problems, build rapport. What I try to do is I essentially try to become, and I like it. It's not like, again, it's not a tactic. a premeditated thought. It's just the way I like to operate. Is I've tried to just become an extension of their team. And at an early stage startup, you don't have much of a team.
Yeah.
So the team that you get to build is the one with your customers.
Yeah.
Is how I look at it.
Yeah.
It's like right now it's just me and my co-founder. So when I work with a local distributor we have here in DFW, I work 1 to 2 days. I have this office here, private office, but I still work 1 to 2 days at their office.
What does that look like? Because I mean, these are are you like in there in the surgeries and everything? Or
No. So it's their distributor. It's their company office. It's where
the distributor's office.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have like office space, like some office space, and then they have generally like a warehouse side of the building.
Yeah.
Where they store all the trays. And then this distributor here locally has an operations manager, a logistics manager, and a whole logistic team with vans that they own that literally are. Their role is to help support sales and transport and move the trays accordingly.
So you found, I mean, they're your customer, right? So did they set you up with a desk or something in there?
I work from the conference room.
Just the conference room?
Yeah.
You just go down there and plop down and you don't mind?
Yep.
Yeah, good.
And hang out all day in their conference room.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would say 85, 90% of my day, I'm just cranking away on Hansel.
Yeah. Okay.
And then every once in a while, like, a question pops up. And that's why it's important to be there.
You're right.
Because when the question pops up, it's nice to just walk over to the ops manager and say, hey, what do you think about this? You know, and then he gives his feedback, or what do you guys do when you do this type of thing? And then they give their feedback. If you're not there, you're not going to build a rapport that I want to build anyways, genuinely and authentically. But you're also not going to have chances for those serendipitous moments to just like learn something.
Yeah. Well, I think you had said before that this embedding with the customer, the way that you do with Hansel, is a learning that actually came out of the previous company that was also doing these asset tracking devices, right?
Yeah.
Hard anyway.
I mean, when I was director of field engineering at the oil and gas company, I managed a team of 8 field engineers, and I deployed all of our projects out in the oil and gas fields at locations and did the customer handover and maintenance of those assets. So like I was already exposed at 25 to 28, a leadership role and the experience of like having meetings in the field with customers.
Gotcha.
In oil and gas.
So even all the way back to the first startup, oil and gas, you were already seeing that in action, seeing the value of it, practicing it.
Yeah, but again, like I think I just personally align, like it feels natural in what I want to do anyways.
Sure.
I just believe that that's the best way to build valuable product.
Yeah. Okay, so you had the oil and gas startup, the second startup.
2 years of medical sales and the second startup.
Yeah, so in the second startup, what's the name of that startup if you don't, or do you want?
No, it's digital medical tech.
Digital medical, okay, because I'm just trying to separate the three phases of what you've gone through to get to Hansel, right?
Yeah.
Two phases and then Hansel. Digital, so the oil and gas one, digital tech?
Digital medical,
and now Hansel. So a digital medical.
But wasn't those direct, there's a gap in between there.
There's a gap in between. Okay, so from digital medical to Hansel.
What happened?
Entire
team, so it was early stage company, COVID hit. We had our biggest momentum at the early of 2020, and then COVID happens. And as a pre-revenue, 6-person team, that didn't bode well for a company in healthcare because healthcare shut down for essentially 3 years.
Which is odd to think about. Okay.
I made a risky investment into that company because that was the learnings from the oil and gas startup is I wanted to have ownership in something I was going to help build value in. So I made actually personally really risky investment in doing that. So in COVID in August of 2020, the entire team was let go. Entire team. You know.
And sorry, this is digital medical or this is the
digital
medical?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was unemployed.
It's like I was including you.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, CEO, everybody. The investors weren't backing the company.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weren't continuing to back the company.
Yep.
So I was unemployed and in debt for 4 months from August of 2020 to January 2021.
Were you anxious then?
Yeah. Again, talk about being grateful for the ebbs and flows. Like that's a period of challenge or darkness, call it whatever. I don't know. Again, now I'm grateful for it because that's only sharpened me to be the founder I am today.
4 months, though. I mean, you think about people who are currently experiencing that valley. I mean, every day feels like a month. You know?
Yeah.
It just like time stretches out so much when you're in the middle of it.
You know what I did, though? Yeah. It's not easy. But what I did was I put the same type of clothes on that I'm wearing right now. And I had a co-working space in Uptown Dallas.
Okay.
And And my new job was to look for a job. And so from call it 8 to 3 or 4, because there's only so long you can like sift through applications.
Tell me about it. I can't even go 8 to 3. That's a long time. I'm like, after 2 or 3 hours. I'm done.
Yeah. So, but I put clothes on and went into the office. Some days I wore leisure gear, but like I still went to the office. I went to the office.
You went to a office.
I went to an office every day.
Yeah.
Even when I was unemployed.
Yeah.
And that was the job. And so I found an opportunity shortly after that. That was in a Microsoft big data Azure partner here in Dallas. I was a project manager. Good people, but the role wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
Project management, at least in that capacity, was a lot of like spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. Yeah. And it was like just
soul sucking, dude.
It was just funny story actually. This room didn't have all this stuff in it, and I had a desk in this corner and worked from this corner during that time. So I didn't have any windows or my own office. It was in this. It was in this space without all this pretty stuff.
And it was
empty. It was white walls.
4 or 5 years ago now.
It was 5 years ago right now, or 4 years ago right now.
4 years ago right now. You have no job, just got a job.
Just got a job
at a desk right here.
Was just 4 months unemployed. Yeah, 4 years ago.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So shortly after that, about 4 or 6 months into that, I knew pretty quickly that wasn't going to be something that I wanted long term. Yeah. So I don't propose frequent job hopping on short time frames, but if you know it's something you're not into, figure out a way to move on. You're not giving value.
The sooner you can stop something that exactly what you're saying is you can tell you already know is not a long-term trajectory for you.
Yeah.
Because that's how the job hopping happens, is you kind of you're like, I think you don't know what your thing is yet.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of trying the next thing, and you're always uninspired. You're never really giving it your all.
Well, I've looked at my career as like the way you iterate product is the way I've iterate finding my way and what I want to do with my career. And so like you want infrequent enough transitions that you have time to like build up some subject matter knowledge at certain opportunities. But having done, oil and gas sales, the other startup, consulting, 2 product management roles, and then, just in Texas, I'm on my 7th opportunity.
Wow.
In 12 years.
Nice.
So,
But I think you make a good point, too, that some of those, almost all of those, they were opportunities that you were heavily invested in for one reason or another. At the time that you were doing it, you're like, hey, I'm going to do it the best I can.
Everything.
I'm going to learn sales really well. I'm going to get back to engineering. I'm going to do engineering really well for digital medical.
Yep.
And then the business development stuff. There's really only, even though you've done all those jobs, you're always investing fully. And even in the Microsoft one, it's like, hey, I can't invest fully in this, so I'm out. I'm going to go find the thing I can.
Well, I never don't put all my effort into whatever I'm doing. There's a level of like personal accountability that I hold to always try. I have kind of a motto that I like burn the boats, but not the bridges.
Burn the boats, but not the bridges.
So always work in a way that you can always maintain a positive rapport or light with the people that you worked with. They would speak highly of your work product, but burn the boats is like, I'm not going back to that opportunity. So people say don't burn a bridge, right? That's burning relationships. Right. Burning the boats in my mind is like, I'm on this new island.
Okay.
And there's no leaving this island.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Until I build a new boat to go somewhere else.
I see. Okay, got
so that's something I say from time to time.
Burn the boats, not the bridges. Meaning like there's no thought in your mind of, I can just quit this and go back and I can move backward or whatever. Right. It's like, no, I'm here now. Bloom where I'm planted. I'm going to just make the most of it. And look forward to the next thing I do that sort of builds on top of this thing.
Yes. And there's value, even though I didn't like the project management aspect of that role, there's still value in working with data engineers and data architects and learning like data warehousing and how companies might migrate to the cloud if they're on-prem, which was even in 2021, it's crazy to think that like more companies weren't like just chomping at the bit to get it off on-prem. But there's still value in getting exposed to that, even if like the daily activities weren't something that was fully fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But so I never phoned it in. I can't.
Yeah.
It's not in my blood to phone it in. So,
where does that come from?
I don't know, man. I think it's just something you're born with. I do. Or you have to at least have the taste of what it feels like to be motivated and inspired to like work on whatever you're working on. I think everybody's got it. They may just be phoning it in life, potentially, in the sense that they haven't found that yet. And so the job is just the job. And I've had the good fortune, for better or worse, to not be making enough money and too much money in any of these roles for me to consider keeping the job versus moving on to something else that was more fulfilling. Because there's a threshold where people will like, well, I'm getting paid so much or whatever. I've never had that because I've worked at early stage companies. And then my first job at Honeywell was a mechanical engineer at Honeywell. You're making entry level engineering salary. Good money at that age, but it's not like,
it's not something you can't give up and try again later. Yeah. Okay.
So,
so
when I was in the
Microsoft,
at the Microsoft partner
for you,
I knew that about 3-4 months in, pretty quickly. Yeah. And the COO of a company here locally called IntelliCentrics. They're in Flower Mound. IntelliCentrics. Yeah, I had been meeting with the COO while I was at Digital Medical because there were obvious like partnership opportunities.
Okay.
IntelliCentrics does vendor credentialing in the medical device space.
Vendor credentialing.
Reps
approving vendors to sell.
So reps that perform work in the hospitals need to get background checks. They need to have shots, flu shots, because they're in a healthcare environment. Okay. All these things, and so that what happens is like that company builds relationships with the hospitals, and then the hospitals allow IntelliCentrics to do the credentialing for the reps in the hospital. So they kind of outsource it if you must. But the hospital doesn't pay IntelliCentrics until IntelliCentrics user base is the vendors and reps that work in the hospitals. But it's within the hospital's policies and bylaws to have these things met.
Okay.
The COO, I guess I impressed well upon him in our meetings or our lunches that we had. And just, again, another stroke of universe or happenstance. Mm-hmm. He passed my information on to their HR team. They were looking to fill a product launch manager role, another product manager role. So I was interested in that because it was back in healthcare. And it was back in software product management, not project management. Okay. Right? Okay. So it was like applications, working with developers, that kind of thing. So went through the interview process and got that role and took that job. So I was only at the Microsoft data partner, Azure partner.
But this sounded like a much better fit for you at
IntelliCentrics.
And there's an IntelliSense in my community, so I have to like separate that now. IntelliCentrics. So then how long were you with IntelliCentrics?
Just about a year. That's actually where I met my co-founder.
And that's where you met your co-founder. So this is all building up to still why Hansel. So with IntelliCentrics, what brought you out of IntelliCentrics to do Hansel?
Well, I was there at IntelliCentrics. I met my co-founder. He was a software architect there. It was his last 3 weeks in my first 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I was on a call with him virtually because he's in the UK. Mm-hmm. And I was immediately impressed by him. And everybody at the company spoke very highly about him, and I also saw an unbelievable amount of work product that he had created in Lucidchart, which is the diagramming tool. Mm-hmm. Think of like Miro. I think we use Lucidchart.
As good as Miro. I'm a big Miro fanboy. Yeah, I'm just like Miro or nothing.
I'm honestly, I'm indifferent.
I mean, they all work to some degree.
Yeah,
Miro's just a lot.
Yeah.
Hire me, Miro. If I ever lose my job, it's like I'll go be a Miro sales boy because I'm just like, it is rare. It is so rare that I ever get so jazzed about any software product. Yeah. And there's like maybe 2 or 3 that I would like, feel just completely loyal no matter what.
Yeah. Well, that's what you should if you're going to sell it, right?
Yeah. And Miro's one of them. Anyways, okay. But you guys are using Lucidchart.
Yeah. So I had in the time of unemployment and at the Microsoft partner, I had already bought HanselMedical.com. I'd already had the LLC established. Like the wheels were turning of like this vision that I was actually trying to help the last startup drive toward that I thought was the path to go, and a much more underserved space with more interesting challenges, honestly. And I knew I wanted a co-founder, and I don't write software, so I've done software product management as like the business side of things, like the implementation and business side of things, which I think there's value in that, actually. Because I'm not prescribing a developer what to do. I'm just saying, here's the business requirements. I'll work with the customer and being able to like translate that into acceptance criteria and a story. So I approached my co-founder, got his contact information to stay in touch. Yeah. And then I approached him.
You already knew. You were thinking about the possibility.
Yes. Yeah. Right. But wasn't sure that it would work out. Yeah. So I had a call, told him I had this idea.
After he left?
Yes.
Some period of time.
Yeah. I need somebody to help me write the software or build software. I'm looking for a co-founder because I want to have this tandem team environment. It's just, I think it's valuable for anybody to have somebody else to like rely on.
Beyond code, are there any other areas that you see where his strengths balance your weaknesses or vice versa?
Big time. Well, I mean, software technology and architecture overall.
Just overall,
I don't
all the
tell
technical stuff.
I don't even step in to say like, oh, should we do this? I may ask questions because I'm curious.
Sure.
And I know kind of like some broader concepts and strategies and code languages and all the whatever to make some suggestions, but I have full faith in him to like run that. And then he has an unbelievable capability as a high-level development software developer and architect to understand product needs and UX design.
So not just focus on technology,
100%.
but he's got enough of that awareness of from a product perspective for this thing to be valuable to the end user, the business.
Yep.
So he can understand that.
Yeah. So we actually, there's plenty of workload and capacity needed to like build our app. He's written every line of code, full stack web application and an iOS mobile app, all himself in his spare time.
Nice. In his spare time, because he's still working a day job.
100%.
Alongside doing all this.
He's a machine.
So he must see something in you too that he's willing to.
Yeah, well, we've had
all this.
Yeah, and we've had the good fortune of like this blossoming into an amazing co-founding relationship over 3.5 years now.
3.5 years.
Started out slow, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm sure he wasn't working as intently, and I was frankly still recovering from the last startup and getting my legs under me financially and professionally.
Right.
So we've had this good fortune to like have this relationship mature really well over time to like really for him and for me to know like, is Greg really going to do what he say, what he's doing over there in the U.S. and how do we work together, and is Jason going to be accountable the way I need it?
And is there because I mean a lot of founders I think are in your position where they're not technical, they've got these great ideas, they're looking for some kind of CTO, some kind of co-founder who can come in and start to build some of their stuff. Are there any other recommendations you would give those founders for how to find their CTO, what to look for in a CTO?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, that's why I feel that's another thing to feel grateful for, frankly, because it's worked out.
You got to see his work. You had those 3 weeks of overlap
and it's turned out to be an amazing like partnership. They say one of the top reasons startups fail is because of co-founder disagreements or, friction.
The team.
Yep. Yeah. So we, in 3.5 years, have not had any of that.
Any of it? You guys have never had...
No, because the way we approach problem solving is a discussion.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. That's why I'm grateful for it.
Like that's not normal.
I believe that you should expect it to be normal.
Sure. We should strive for it.
You should strive for it. Maybe expectation. Strive for it.
Yeah.
That's why it's so great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man. So like he runs technology. I run, sales operations. I build the hardware. And implementations.
You build the hardware, okay. So you do the mechanical side.
Yeah.
Do you build the mechanical stuff?
Yeah, so that's where we fill gaps, right? He probably could have figured it out. I mean, he's pretty savvy.
Right.
But I had the 3D modeling
but
back.
You had that experience coming to the table. He had the software experience coming to the table.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm the deepest knowledgeable mechanical engineer, but having the mechanical engineering background and some of the 3D modeling background allowed me to build version 1 of our hardware.
Yeah, it was enough to start.
Well, and you got to understand, he's working in his spare time on the software. He can't build the hardware too.
Yeah.
So like it works out, and we're in that capacity. We're actually so I have software product knowledge. He also does too from a technical side, but I do from a business side. And I'm building the hardware, and then he's building the full stack, software application. And so we love to play in the world of software product together. We both kind of combine our forces there and brainstorm ideas and talk about how, the hardware and software should work and what we need to focus on, what we need to prioritize. And then I let him run all things technology and architecture, and he lets me run all things fundraising, sales, hardware, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. So what other, when you talk about how you want to run Hansel, because you're in the driver's seat now, being one of the founders, but do you guys considered co-founders, or are you the CEO? He's the CTO?
Yeah.
Okay. So being the CEO, I guess what experiences in your past that maybe have not gone well influence now how you're choosing to lead Hansel?
Yeah. Again, part of this gets back to the whole concept of what makes a person is the nature versus nurture stuff. So some of it you just have.
Okay.
That's just who you are. And other aspects are like the opportunities professionally that build you into the person that you are. So I think it's both. In working at some of these other early stage companies and sales roles, bigger companies too, which is actually a great experience to see like the smallest of the small, be the independent sales rep, essentially man of one, doing everything, but also working at a company that's 150, 200 people. And then, after IntelliCentrics, I worked 18 months as a software product manager for Charles Schwab before taking the leap into Hansel. And then my first opportunity at Honeywell, seeing a government-funded corporate entity. So like I've seen every spectrum.
All over the map.
Yeah, I've seen every spectrum, which gives you perspective. So in some of those roles, I've seen leadership aspects and qualities that I would just do something different. And I take every opportunity leading up till now where I am the founder and CEO, I've always put my mind into the position of what would I do if I were running this company.
Like what? What's an example of something you saw that you're like, okay, noted, I'm not going to do it that way?
Yeah. At the oil and gas startup, we were not focused on becoming really good at the first thing. So that founder
Focused at being good at the first thing.
like the thing that you can, you start like startups start in niches and you expand from there. And so you have to focus on getting the product reliable and find that product market fit as a buzzword that people will buy the solution before you expand to other like feature and offerings. We were trying to do too much with not enough people. So the founder had shiny object syndrome.
Yeah. So that's product market fit, not with, the whole platform that I imagine it's going to take 10 years to build, but that's product market fit with the one feature, the one thing that's worth.
Yeah, which for Hansel is reliable background automatic asset tracking.
Reliable background automatic asset tracking?
Oh, the reason I use background and automatic, they kind of mean the same thing in that sense. But like the idea is that the user doesn't even have to interact with the mobile app on their phone in order for us to track the assets that they move between facilities. So
Gotcha. So they don't have to open up the app. So for Hansel, the one thing that you're focused on, or that you were focused on as the first thing, I should say, is yes, you have the mobile app, but they don't have to get in there and check stuff in, check stuff out, type in where it's going. I haven't seen the app, so I'm just kind of guessing is like,
well, it's rudimentary right now.
Into tracking, right?
Right.
Like, they don't have to manually go in there and put in the tracking information.
Right.
You're using that Bluetooth technology to automate that as much as possible.
100%.
Okay. So that's the one thing that you guys
That's the foundation of what we do.
Yeah.
Everything builds on that.
Okay.
Everything.
And the oil and gas company didn't have that focus.
No, it was just too many offerings, hardware projects and software. And the team wasn't big enough. And in oil and gas, you're driving everywhere to like do these implementations. So you're spread thin anyways.
Spread thin.
Another lesson too in that business was it's super capital intensive, even as a software business, because you have oil and gas instrumentation. We used wireless instrumentation, but you have oil and gas instrumentation that would install a site would cost you $50 to $100K in devices.
Okay.
So you have to.
So when you say the lesson with the capital intensive thing is that basically the more capital intensive you are, that should be all the more reason to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And not be doing 20 things, because each of those 20 things have an associated cost.
100%. Hardware costs, development costs.
Hardware costs, which is software costs have that. Software has that cost as well when you're trying to support 20 features.
Not even the same.
It's not even close to the hardware.
That's why a lot of investors don't like to touch hardware because it's harder. Conversely, it's like
that's your. Sorry, I said nice pun.
Oh,
I couldn't.
I didn't even think about that.
My dad mode came out right there.
Yeah, the hardware's harder. Yeah. Well, anybody would agree with that, I think. Yeah. But the reality is like if you build something of value that relies on hardware, it's that much harder to replicate. Yeah. Unlike software, unlike pure software. Now you can't just hop on a virtual sales call, give a demo of your software product, and sell it. So there's aspects of our Hansel and hardware businesses that are harder because you have the implementation and customer aspect where you're actually like helping install stuff. Yeah. There's pros and cons to both.
Yeah. Awesome. Are there any other major, ethos that Hansel has in how you guys want to operate?
Yeah. I have a whole list of principles that I've written down in an iCloud note. I've added to it. It's probably a list of like 15 bullets. I could probably just get my phone and read them.
I guess anything on that same line of thought of things that you'd kind of seen go off the rails in your previous experience.
Yeah, well, I want the team to feel fulfilled in what they build and what they're excited about, and I want every person to feel like their voice is heard. So if they have, I don't care if it's my idea. I genuinely don't. Like, yeah, I'm the founder right now, and it's cool that it's
Did you see that not go well in a previous company?
Not that it didn't go well, it's just that there was less awareness and proactiveness towards listening to others' feedback and ideas.
Okay.
Not that it was like shunned.
Yeah.
It just was kind of like, I guess, brushed off in a way a little bit. And so there's only so many. If you do that over time, it's going to wear the team down.
Yeah, I was going to say, what effect did you see on the team with that?
Yeah, you just lose, the culture starts diminishing, right?
Squashes creativity.
Well, and if you're seeing, and on top of that, if you're doing so many different products because you're not focusing on a product to get really good at, then people see reliability issues and they can internally tell in this startup space where inspiration and traction is so valuable, if they're seeing their own stuff break and not deliver value in a way, you're deflating the inspiration of the team that you bring on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then that's kind of one of your guys' core principles is to have that, if you call it see your open communication, but hearing every idea and taking it, and not just hearing it like,
I have one of those principles. Yeah, one of those principles is voice every idea. Best idea wins.
How do you make sure the best idea wins then?
Well, right now it's just me and the co-founder. So it's like we just
talk it out.
But I mean, I've been able to like lead development teams and lead the team at the oil and gas startup and other teams. And it's a discipline or a behavior that you either have or you develop even more over time. And so it's just not having an ego around needing to be the person that's right.
Yeah.
There's a level of objectivity. Now, at the end of the day, as the founder and CEO or co-founder CTO, like we have the responsibility and accountability to the company to own the decision. So if there's like 2 or 3 options that all sound good, then it's on me or co-founder to say like, well, we're going this way. We're doing this thing because
I didn't burn that boat.
Well, I'm thinking about, I'd say burn the boats in the sense of like the burn the boat.
Meaning you commit to it.
Yeah,
right.
But like you can, so burn the boats is more of like an analogy or a phrase to relate to the career stuff.
Okay.
I wouldn't say burn the boats on an idea. Like the cool thing about startups and the technology and product is you can experiment.
Yeah, true.
And so there's actually, I think it's Thinking Clear. It's by Shane Parrish. He has a blog and a podcast. A podcast is called The Knowledge Project. I read his book called Thinking Clear Thinking. It's one of the two. And there's this section in there where he talks about, it's not something I haven't read a quote on before or read a blog post on, but he like drives it home kind of. Is like there's reversible decisions and irreversible decisions. And so if it's reversible, you do it, you try it. If it doesn't work, you can revert back.
Yeah.
You need to take a longer time to assess and consider irreversible decisions or harder reversible decisions.
That's a good point. It brings back, I remember as a software guy, we do a lot of agile, and agile is all about these retrospectives and stuff. And it was actually, I'm going back on what I said a second ago, because it was actually very difficult. Once you start to try something new, people very quickly get out of the experimentation mindset and very quickly get into, this is the routine now. So it's like, if you want to experiment with a new product idea, or in the case of these agile processes, it's like, oh, let's, for stand up, instead of yesterday, today, blockers, that's like the 3 classic questions. Like, let's try a 4th question, right? Well, if you try that 4th question like 2 weeks from now, people are just now in the habit and they're no longer thinking, is this 4th question adding value? Yeah. Is it like, should we keep doing this or should we reverse it? And that's actually, it's very difficult, I find, for people to stay in that mindset of, here's an experiment, we can reverse this later if it's proving to not have value, and then actually do that reversal.
Well, and depending where you work, people may not feel like they can voice that. If leadership chose to set up this new framework and take this new direction, maybe they don't feel like they can say something and they're just doing their job and then they're phoning it in. That's what happens at big companies. Yeah. My observation, that's what happened at corporations.
Well, and to your point about the ego too, the leaders who are making those decisions, even if it is reversible, they're like, if I reverse it, that means I failed and I can't do that. So
man,
we're going to overcommit and make it work, even though we're leaving a trail of bodies, through figuratively speaking.
And again, the broader culture of that corporation is like, that person's ass is on their line if that's a bad decision, where that's a bad philosophy anyways.
Right.
One thing I've seen at larger companies, which is what I love about the smaller company startup space, it's flatter, but like the leadership at those companies is like 3 to 4 degrees removed from what's actually going on in the trenches.
Both trenches, by the way, the engineering trenches, but also the customer trenches.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and what I saw I like the people, I love the company was great, but at Charles Schwab, it's like, I didn't get to interact with customers as a product manager. And that's how I operate, right? Like that's how I'm sharing, like that's how I like to operate. Yeah. And that's where I can I can deliver the most value kind of thing, right? If I'm talking to the customer. And so in some of those larger organizations, those people that hold those role positions, those role player kind of positions, they don't get to do the true capacities of what I see product management is.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So then with Hansel, 3 years in the making, a little more than that.
Yeah.
You and your co-founder, it's just you two still.
I would say we launched when I left Schwab.
Okay.
You know, late September 23, early October. That's when I went full time.
Okay.
With the company. So what happened to kind of like close the loop on that a little while ago? I had lived really lean, paid off any debt, and saved up 2 years of cash runway.
Okay.
To put myself in a position to go all in on Hansel.
Okay.
And so that's what happened in September of 23.
Okay, so that was able to happen in September 23.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to recognize, though, that for a lot of founders, they might stumble on a good idea, but there's a long incubation period, and there's things they can do to kind of get ready for that level of commitment that you did, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to look different for every person. Not every person has to build up 2 years of savings in order to make that commitment. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you have an idea on a Saturday, you know, don't throw all your chips on it on Monday.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of validation, there's a lot of small investments, both time and money, that you can make to kind of make sure that that's going to be, you know.
I had conviction at the last startup, Digital Medical, and 2 years in sales. So if you go back all the way to, just started at Digital Medical, that was early 2019. So I've had 6 years that I've been
stewing on this,
right? So I definitely, and like that experience at Digital Medical was literally a 2-year boot camp for me to form the vision of what I'm trying to build with Hansel. And it's actually expanded well beyond that, right? That was just the first spark. Man, we have a lot of ideas of where we want to go in the future. A lot. We're going to start where we're at right now.
Well, so what's next for Hansel? Or did you close the loop like you wanted to there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was nice to have a product management role in financial services, to know that when I went to build something in healthcare, there wasn't going to be any like competing interest in what I was doing. And it was awesome because actually everybody there that I worked with, that was great. We're all super supportive of me. So yeah, what's next for Hansel? You know, this year we're going to raise our first round of funding. So like the first year or so, I was living off my savings and self-funding the company resourcefully, which is challenging to do. Which is challenging to do with hardware. Yeah. Luckily, we have lightweight hardware, and there's a lot of sweat equity and engineering as a co-founding team that we get to put into the product, which makes us subject matter experts, but also saves money, frankly, which is why YC's always said, like, it's like critical that the founding team is technical founding team, you know? Yeah. And then we got into Techstars last fall. That came at a time that it was needed, because I was in a personal financial position where it's like I was starting to have to think about working part-time software product stuff.
Sure.
And we got into Techstars, and that gave us, their investment terms and some capital that allowed me to continue to stay as a full-time founder.
We should talk about that sometime. We probably don't have time today, but that'd be a good follow-on to just kind of explore that experience from
absolutely
A to Z.
Yeah.
But okay, so you get into Techstars.
Yeah, and then so I got back in December of 24, just early or late last year, and so this year is.
You got into Techstars December of 24.
No, I got into Techstars in July of 24.
Sorry, okay.
And started September.
Okay.
So they start the application. They have two cohorts each year.
Yeah.
And so you start the application. They do the application interview process, then you get accepted, and then you have like a month or 6 weeks. There's a diligence process that they have to do even after you've been accepted to make sure that there's not any skeletons in the closet with the company. We don't have that.
Good.
Yeah. No, I wasn't worried about that. And so then I was in Columbus, Ohio for the Techstars program there from early September to early December.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're pretty freshly out of that. Awesome. So then, so you're looking for the first round of funding.
Yeah. Pre-seed round. And that's been a long learning process. It's been interesting to actually navigate what you want out of your funding, right? As a first-time founder, you've never raised funding before.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason why investors want you to have revenue or traction, this unbelievable traction, because you are a first-time founder. But as a first-time founder, I found it, challenging to really pinpoint how much you're going to raise, what you need it for, the valuation. And so I finally have a level of clarity on that. But that's taken every bit of a year and a half to kind of get to that point of clarity.
Yeah.
Well, you got to understand.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. And how much of a role did your CTO play in all that?
We talk about it.
Yeah.
constantly. We talk, we message every day, and then we have a founder sync. We only get on a video call mostly every third week on a Sunday.
Okay.
And all the other communications is async.
Yeah.
And
so I guess, did he help you figure out from a technical perspective what to look for as far as funding goes, or like scoping out estimates of how much things would cost to build and that sort of thing?
I mean, yeah, no. So from like use of proceeds and what our cloud compute costs are, and data and all that stuff. Yeah, we've talked about that.
Okay.
So there's a technical aspect of like how much our spend is going to be as we scale. Early on, it's really just like finger in the air, anyways. But we've talked a lot about evaluation, how much to raise, and this, that, and the other. And I probably spend a majority of the time on it, but that's my role as CEO. I mean, he even made a comment recently about being appreciative of me, taking point and lead on all the fundraising stuff. But that's my role, so I have to.
Just doing your job.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if I want to get him full time and I want to build this company, like that's what's required.
That's true. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just, you don't know what you don't know and you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And finally, I would say after, many of conversations with mentors and people and other founders, and I finally landed on kind of like, well, how much I wanted to raise and what stage we're at. Because I was
going to say, what was the best resource for you learning and navigating all that?
Man, you have to put yourself out there to allow opportunities to like build relationships with these mentors or people or other founders that might have been there before that are willing to take their time to talk to you about it. So I fielded like our valuation and how much to raise and all this dilution and our stage and attraction and like all that stuff to say like, am I crazy that this is a reasonable like expectation? And their experience in the space, was like, yes, no, that is reasonable, or no, it's not, kind of thing. So, I mean, I remember
kind of a lot of just that personal feedback from mentors and finding people, like you said, to go into networking events or whatever, and getting them being willing to get on the phone with you for 30 minutes and just review your plan.
Yeah. Well, we met at the networking coffee.
Yeah.
Startup Cup of Capital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I talked to one of my close friends here in Dallas about kind of those things. And it's just like, same with sales funnel or anything. You can go to a lot of those and feel like you didn't get any value. Here we are sitting doing a podcast, right? But you can go to a lot of those and feel like, man, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
I wasted 2 or 3 hours of my day going to that. Maybe you spend a little bit of money to go there too.
Right.
And you're like, damn. But the reality is like, you have to do that in order to have those moments or those conversations where I can be here sitting doing a podcast with you, or you can meet the mentor, or you can meet the co-founder.
Well, and in the 15-minute conversation that you and I had, maybe it was longer than that, but I mean, we got into talking about like the Stoics and stuff.
Yeah,
and there was like this connection of just like, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but man, he's into the Stoics. I want to talk to him.
Well, and you can just build. I mean, it's having that upfront like personal interaction like allows you to kind of read the person and realize that like you want to learn more.
Yeah.
You can have a good conversation. So this year we want to raise our funding. I want to get my co-founder full time. We're going to commercialize Hansel and hopefully have our first contracts for revenue towards the end of the year.
Commercialize, have the first contracts by the end of the year, raising money to get your co-founder on full time. I was listening to another podcast recently, and they were talking about, in the beginning, do things that don't scale.
Yeah, YC says that.
Right? Yeah. YC. I hear so many things all the time. I'm like, not sure where it comes from, but. So when you talk about productionizing, what's the thing that you've done that does not scale that you need that money for to productionize it to make it scale?
So I piecemeal all of our hardware assembly, and I have to get
by hand.
I configure all of our hardware, the configuration of the Bluetooth beacons.
Build it in your garage.
Per se.
Classic.
I work with a guy in East Texas that helps me do the soldering because that's an art thing.
Okay.
Like soldering's hard.
You like ship him stuff?
I've driven out there. I've driven out there multiple times. 2 hours to Longview.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Multiple weekends.
Dropping off a box of hardware.
Yeah, and we work on stuff. We did failure analysis on our failed hardware from last year. That went really well, and so I'm very hands-on with that. Same way I'm hands-on with customers, I like to have my hands on, especially early on. Like you have to.
Yeah.
Only going to make you more knowledgeable of what you're building, and it saves money, all that stuff, right?
Money.
So, which is important at the earliest stages. So, yeah, right now, I like piecemeal all this stuff to like build our first. To get our first versions of our beacon assemblies made, order the components, order the printed circuit boards, order the batteries, get them soldered, get our housing's made. All that stuff is done by like me quarterbacking
Yeah.
all those pieces to then make them so that we can then put them in with the customer. So when we get the first round of capital, a portion of that is already set to like work with the hardware design firm to help us build V2 of the product, maybe even change the design to make it more aesthetic.
Sure.
All that stuff. Beef up in some engineering aspects. Like what I've built is functional and good enough for what we're doing this year. So when we did the failure analysis in East Texas a few weeks back, I learned that none of our beacons had actually failed.
None of them failed.
They're not the beacons, not the printed circuit boards. The batteries failed.
Okay.
So we have, but there's more detail I could give. What the components I've ordered.
Sure, but I think the important thing there is that you're doing it yourself. You're not only saving cost, but you're also firsthand gaining all the learning associated with that.
100%.
And you're able to do that and deliver it to your customer. So you're getting early feedback. That again, you're embedded there. So you're speaking personally to all those people with the thing that you built. How did you get, because that customer feedback is invaluable, which is always a funny word to me because it's valuable is valuable.
But you can't put a price on it. Yeah. Point.
So how did you get those first customers to like give you the okay to bring your home built hardware into their medical facilities?
Operations.
Yeah.
Some of those are relationships that I've cultivated and maintained over the course of 5 years.
From previous companies that you had run into them, maintain those relationships.
Yeah. And just,
So they already knew, liked, and trusted you.
One of our first distributors I interviewed with before I moved to Texas to be a sales rep.
To be a sales rep, okay.
In Kansas City when I was thinking about moving on from Honeywell.
Okay.
Didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed with this person for a medical in Central Missouri for a medical sales role. And so when I sent the first email saying I'm leaving Schwab and going to do this Hansel thing, he was the first person to respond and say, "Would love to help any way I can."
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I'm actually driving to Missouri for 2 weeks starting Wednesday.
Even the, I don't know if you'd consider that person a recruiter or interviewee, but even the people that turned you down for jobs, keep in contact with, because...
Yeah, it wasn't turned down, it just didn't work out.
Whatever. Yeah.
He's a former mechanical engineer. He went to Purdue.
Yeah, not to mean you down, but just...
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are, if something doesn't work out with a job, right, they just sort of turn their back and walk away and never look back.
Don't burn the bridge.
Right.
Right.
And even if they're not intentionally burning the bridge, they're at least letting it rot in a way that like they don't ever think they can go back to that bridge again. But
what had happened with this individual, I had their cell phone, and one of my closest college friends has worked with him for 12 years. That was the reason I even had the interview.
Okay.
It was because that college friend was working with him, and they've worked together for 12 to 14 years now. And so I had maintained a communication with this person, the distributor owner in Missouri, over the last startup and the whole time in maintaining the focus and vision of what I wanted to build with Hansel. And so just staying in touch and keeping the rapport there.
Yeah.
And so 2 of them are newer. One I met in Columbus through lucky introductions and interactions. I found this foot and ankle distributor that's willing to work with us early on. And then also through lucky interactions recently, one of our DFW groups, the guy helping me with our financial model for Hansel in Austin knows a rep in Austin that he played college football with that works for the distributor that I'm now dealing with here in Texas.
Nice.
And that person, so like it's that daisy chain. But if I wasn't on a webinar for the financial guy to like reach out and connect with me and start working with, and that went well, that would have never happened.
It's true, man. So much of it's going back to Cup of Capital that I met you at. So much of it's just showing up because you don't even know how those things are going to daisy chain together and down the road.
But it's balancing it because you still got to do the work.
You do.
Right? So I'm trying to be very intentional on the ones I go to and how much time or commitment they are because there's a lot of time you need to just sit and do focus work.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, awesome, man. Anything else that we should look forward to with Hansel?
No. Hopefully just traction, and we're talking soon about having a full-time founding team.
Yeah.
We're
going to keep tabs on that. When you get the funding you're looking for, be able to bring your co-founder on, and you guys start to productionize, we'll have to chat again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be cool to
check up.
Yeah. It'll be cool to have like a retrospective and reflection conversation with you about knowing this conversation and then where we actually got to.
Yeah.
So this year's been one of the best years I feel like I've had to like set goals.
Good.
It's most of the company. I have like 7 goals for the year and 6 of them are for the company.
Yeah.
Because I'm living and breathing it.
All this, so many people talk about work-life balance and stuff, and I sort of get that, but lately I've merged my personal and work lists more and more.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
But you got a family, right?
I do.
How many kids, right? 4.
I have 6 kids.
6.
I have 6 kids, yeah.
Yeah.
And But I think the reason I merge them is because I did. I mean, I used to have a personal list and this, and the thing is, it's like, if I spend, 40, 50 hours a week just looking at my work list over and over again, and then I try to get to my personal list on like a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that, it's like the focus is work, and I'm not even thinking about how to work in the personal stuff. And so if I put those lists together, as I'm looking at the list every day, I'm kind of in this mindset of like, okay, I want to be able to do this with the kids, or I want to be able to, take my wife out on a date night. I need to schedule something for that. And it's like part of it for me is it's a visibility thing, I guess. And it's not that I also have other, hard stops. Like I have a policy of like always being there for dinner.
Yep.
Except for I've given myself one networking night a week, because all these networking things typically have
like
been
morning coffee or dinner happy hour.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, one thing a week is my balance right now, but I have to look at it all. I have to be conscious of it all, so that if I know I'm going to be gone on Thursday, then tonight when I go home, it's, movie night, or it's whatever, we're going to go on a walk with the kids. Just little things like that I'm conscious of throughout the whole day. Like I know I'm going to do that.
That's why it's so important to be fulfilled in the work that you do, because work is a part of who you are anyways. It's so much of a part of our lives.
Yeah.
You might as well do something you like. And then again, you do need to make the balance with things in personal life. And there was a quote that I shared, and I get two newsletters a week that I really like, but there was a quote in one recently that was, success is being excited to go to work and excited to come home, which I thought was awesome.
That's a good one.
Very simple. So like, is your home life balanced in a way that you like it? Are you excited to come home after work?
Yeah.
Because you need to separate.
You do. Yep. Well, and that's also why it's so important to make those 3 things, because I don't know about you, but I'll make my 2 or 3 things for the day. When I check them off, I actually leave them there so I can see it, because at the end of my 5-hour day, I'll see like the 3 green check marks next to the thing, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I've put in
if you deleted
my best
it.
effort. Right? If it just deletes right away, then I'm still looking at this empty. And it sort of induces this like, I need to do more, but if I can see the 3 things and I leave them there till the next morning, and it's not until the next morning that I actually remove them from the list, because it's like, I need to know that like I've put in my time, I've done the best I can, now it's time to go focus on the family.
Yeah, and that's what I love about actually having the handwritten sticky notes.
Yeah. Actually,
because I just cross it out.
Yeah. And you see it there.
And I see it there. Stays there.
That little dopamine, right? The dopamine hit that you get with that. Yeah. It's so important, I think, to keep
it's little, but it's like, it's confirmation that like a reminder that like, you got that done. You listed that down, you wrote it down.
And you accomplished it. That rolling feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, thank you so much for the time, sir.
Appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.